Thank you to be there and to take the time to listen to me for this presentation. So let's start. We were supposed to be two, with George and myself, but George was giving another conference in the United States, and he was not able to make it today. So that's why I'm alone and presenting this talk by myself. I'm Giuseppe Polito. I live in Belgium, and I'm actually a senior ops engineer in the cyber and fraud security team in one of them. There are multiple teams related to cyber and fraud security within ING Belgium. I joined the bank 10 years ago as a developer. I started to do mainly maintenance of our current digital home bank channel, and slowly growing and getting into a change team in order to provide new functionalities and within those channels. And after 4 years, I joined the cyber and security part of that bank, and as a developer, always. And now I'm more on the operational side of things in my team as an ops engineer. So taking care of the service level agreement, for example, is one of our tasks. Making sure that everything is up and running always, at all times, is also another task. And so that's it. It's almost 10 years that I work in that bank. About ING, ING is a global financial institution, and we have a strong European base, and we offer retail services and wholesale banking to our customers in more than 40 countries. So indeed, I put sustainability forms really an integral part of ING's strategy. We are also ranked in bank industry group like Sustainalytics, for example. And we have more than 52,000 employees working for ING Bank. ING Bank is a group. I work in Belgium for ING Belgium, which is a branch of that group. And more information about ING itself can be found in the website. I put here a small map showing where we are leading the markets in Europe, in the Benelux mainly, which is Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg. But we are also challenging in other countries like Germany, Austria, Spain, Czech Republic, France, for example. And there is a growing market also in Poland, for example, and in Romania as well, in which we have teams working there as well. And we offer wholesale banking as well in the United States and in other countries as well. But our main core business for the moment is still in Europe. There are a lot of international teams within ING Belgium. This is a great thing, from India to Poland to Romania to Spain to Italy. There is a lot of teams, multicultural teams, and we form quite great squads. That's quite a good. It's a good feeling to work with all those different people. You learn a lot, not only from a cyber and fraud security perspective, but as well as a human. We perform some hackathons internally, for example. That's a great thing. We form people there. We perform also internal Devoxx Kids trip, for which we have small children. And for example, we put in place, we try to learn them and to make them loving programming. For example, we had a few track and workshop with small games, and we showed them, for example, how to interact with the world just by changing the value of a variable. And quite impressive to see that even at 5 or 6 years, they start to understand and they start to make change themselves afterwards. So yes, we do also this kind of things within ING Belgium, and that's really nice to be part of that. Some numbers, but I took this slide because this is a very important sentence for us, and it's our ING COO that gives this message that we started 2019 with a total dedication to a regulatory a total dedication to our regulatory and compliance commitment, but while always remembering the most important thing, our customers. That's the focus. We really work hard to make them having a better experience, to be more secure. It's a big point for us, and we try to put all our efforts for them. So, now we are going to enter in the main subject, talking about our customers. We are going to talk now about threats and trends in the fraud and cybersecurity fields, right? So for that, this year I took the European Cybercrimes report, the latest report that they publish. So Europol each year publish a report in which they share with everybody what are the trends, what's going on in cyber and security fraud. And basically this report this year will drive my complete talk. And basically I'm going to show where ING Belgium fits on the recommendation that is given by Europol. I took one sentence from Catherine de Boll, which is Executive Director for Europol, because this is important, as I'm going to show you a bit later. Actually, I'm going to show you one threat that happens among the others, and this is quite really important, and that's why I put there. And so while we must look ahead to anticipate what challenge new technology, legislation, and criminal innovation may bring, we must not forget to look behind us. And that's very important. Many long-standing and established modi operandi persist. That's true. And despite our best efforts, some thread of yesterday remain still relevant today, and they are going to be there also tomorrow. That's very important. We don't have to forget that. Trends of the hack for this year. Yeah, trends of the hack. In that report, cyber-dependent crime, as it's written, is the top thread that happened in Europe mainly, followed by child sexual exploitation, payment fraud, criminal abuse on the dark web, convergence of cyber and terrorism, and cross-cutting crime factors. So I grayed out a few of them because in this talk I'm going to talk about things that are more relevant for a bank, for example, for the teams that are working in a bank. And that's why a few of them are out of scope, and I'm going to focus on cyber-dependent crime, payment fraud, and cross-cutting crime factors. Cyber-dependent crime. So, as stated by the report, ransomware remains the most prominent threat. So, they discovered more than 25 individual families of ransomware. And I'm talking about families, not about the version on each family. A couple of names there. And it seems that remote desktop protocols and emails remain the primary infection method for this kind of issue. Ddos attack. So, as stated again by the report, while denying a public or private sector entity access to its own data may be the primary threat in this year's report, denying other access to that entity data was the third most significant threat highlighted by the report. So indeed, it's not only that cyber attacks are focused on your own infrastructure. You may have also people trying to target services that you are using. So they are not going to attack your own infrastructure, but other services, just for example, to put down your service, but not directly by attacking your own infrastructure. It happens, for example, if you have a CDN service. You can use CDN, for example, and if they start to attack that CDN, it will impact your business as well, right? And of course, attack on infra itself. What do we do regarding ransomware? So, as a remote desktop protocol or a primary vector of infection, internally, you need to assess your IT protocol usage. So you have specific profiles that doesn't need to use all available protocol that you have defined in your company. RDP is one example. Who needs to have a remote desktop, for example, to access the data? Maybe you're working from home, but still, you have to assess it. And that way, you're going to minimize the risk. It sounds logic, right? But you need to do it. Education. Again, it sounds logic. Nothing magic here. But education is top priority, and within ING, even more, within ING it's very important as well. So we schedule trainings. What kind of trainings? For example, regarding email. Nobody knows in the company that something like that is going to happen. They will receive mail, which looks very legitimate, but it's just a test. So we test people and we train them in order to see what is the behavior. Are they going to click on each link they found on this kind of mail? So it's very important. We do this kind of training, but doing the training only is not sufficient, and there's no point to train people if you cannot or if you don't measure the results. So let's say you have 100% doing the test. Let's say you have half of them that fails. You are going to redo the test, and you should see already an increase in the quality. So it will be 50 this year. Maybe next time we'll have 40, 30. That's how you have to train people, and train again and again and again. Ddos attack. Yeah, for example, what we do is we profile all incoming traffic. You can profile traffic with your web application firewall. You can profile the traffic if you use Nginx, for example, as a proxy. You can use Nginx. There's scripting language within Nginx. You can already try to profile everything at that level in order to provide the inputs later in the chain. If you can discover issue and things at that level, you are not going to pass the request in the chain, right? So that's very important. You have to profile all the traffic. And of course, if you profile the traffic and you don't use the data that come out of that, there's no point, right? So you take this result and you have to include them all later in the chain, especially for real-time fraud detection system. And you can mitigate DDoS and bot through web proxy infrastructure. I took the CDN example before. And CDN, for example, you can use it, for example, if you have static content that is open in the internet. You have a banking website. This website offers you an interface in which you can log on, and then you will log in and you will enter in the closed environment, in your own environment, closed one. And that's different. But for open resources, you can use CDN services as they are going to add you added value, because it's their job as well to make their platform available, cybersecurity safe, so they can add a value. Attacks on critical infrastructure. Yes, we perform vulnerability scan on a regular basis on all components of the infra. From the DMZ, so the demilitarized zone, network zone, to other kind of network zone, all infra should be tested with vulnerability scan. You have to find any breach, and we do that, of course. As long as you perform this scan, you are able to discover, of course, issue and that you can try to close, right? So we do that. We perform vulnerability scan. And you may simulate cyber attack in a controlled way. You're not going to break your own infra, but you can simulate cyber attack. And you may have dedicated teams which their job is focused only on that. Attack the infra, see where you have the weakest link. And they do so. And of course, all of that, we do that with an holistic approach, indeed to maximize successful assessment of current and future security. An example of that is that in big companies such as banks and other, you have business domain, right? And the priority usually for a business owner is its own project. The project, basically, that's his scope. He have project, he have a focus, he have to give result, implement, he have to perform his job. And sometimes security may be not one of the most important stuff for them. So that's why we, at the cybersecurity level, we take an holistic approach. We don't check at different business domain and adapt to them. No, it's the opposite. Business domain should not rule the security strategy, but the opposite. And that's very important. That was a recommendation in the report of Europol this year. Coordinated action with the private sector, deployment of new technologies. Nowadays, we are using a lot AI in our system, and we should continue. Those tools are evolving, they are learning, the systems are learning, and we have to use that. And yeah, it's a joint effort. They talk a lot about collaboration, cooperation between different sectors. That's what they recommend. Collaboration, cooperation from public, private sectors, third parties. It's very important, for example, to not duplicate work. For example, some third party may discover one issue that can impact you, but they're not just going to share that. Why? Because there's no commitment on that? Nothing. So recommendation is always cooperate with all parties that are involved in your systems. So we do. Payment fraud. I forgot to ask you something. How many developers are in the room? Almost everybody. Person from business, more oriented in product owner kind of job? It's mostly developer, right? Mostly technicians. Who knows who have heard about card non-present fraud? Heard? So basically, card present fraud, which in this year Europol report represent the main priority within this type of fraud, and also continue to be a facilitator for other forms of illegal activity. The card non-present fraud is just a fraud in which you don't need to have physically your card with you. And there are a lot of systems online that you can use, and you just need what? Card number, expiration date, eventually the CVV, right? CVV is becoming more and more a requirement for merchant, but it seems that sometimes it's not always used. So basically, this is a card present, not present fraud. Sorry? I didn't. 3DS secure? I'm going to talk about that. 3DS secure, for example, when you're going to sign a transaction, what happens is that the payment processor that is behind is going to contact the card issuer in order to make another validation and authentication. And there, it's a better form of protecting customer. But usually, for example, at ING, concretely, for 3D Secure and other system, when you have to sign a transaction, that's what we do. So I'm coming on that. Let's talk quickly about skimming, jackpotting. You know what is jackpotting? There's a small image. So basically, jackpotting is a term that is used when a criminal actually wants to make a physical access to an ATM and will try to rob all the money. Form jacking, web injection. This is a topic that will provide a detail just after, because it's something I've worked actively on that a few years ago already. I'm going to show something interesting about that. But what we do and what should be done. In this specific case, I put as well what should be done, because in this type of fraud, when the card is non-present, the bank by himself is not the only entity that is used to make a transaction. You have a merchant at the beginning, then you may have third parties, and then you have the bank. So we do things at our level, but also something needs to be done at all levels. For example, when we are talking about merchant, you need always to establish clear the service level agreement with them. Transaction recovery and traceability is key. If you have a merchant online which is not able to provide you traces and transaction recovering mechanism, maybe there is no point to work with that merchant, right? Where is the protection? The protection should start there. So this should be clear, and it should be stated really clear with them. Encourage MFA, and now I'm coming to your question. I put encourage because indeed it's not always the case, but within ING, what we do is usually when you have to sign a transaction with a credit card from a merchant, you are going to use your credit card with your card reader in order to generate a one-time password. You know? So, for example, at that moment, you can avoid issue. I'm not saying you are going to avoid everything. This world is wild, is complex. But here, you have a credit card, so even if a hacker possesses this information, during the transaction, what he will do? You need a card reader, and you need, with your information, your PIN and so on, you need to enter the data in order to generate a one-time password that will be used to validate the transaction, among other things. That's important. That's why I put encourage MFA during this transaction. Problem? Encouraging MFA with this type of credit cards, card reader and system, then you are not more in a card not present workflow, right? Because now, basically, the card is present. And that's why I put encourage anyway. Of course, always verify all information. During transaction, there are services that are given for the merchant, so the very first front layer, which is address verification service. They can use that. They can use that in order to already start some validation at that level. And it's always good. Don't try to rely, as a merchant, I will never try to rely on the next link in the chain. I will always do all what I can in my own front to validate the maximum of information. Shipment priority. Usually a hacker, when he wants to make a fraud with a credit card, he doesn't care about priority of shipment, right? There's what he wants. How to explain that? It's coupled with transaction pattern. It's coupled with that. So basically, transaction pattern are also, you do always the same kind of payment within internet, I believe, right? It's very rare than you will buy something really completely differently. So usually, what do you buy there? Maybe a device, or maybe you use the same merchant. Maybe you never care about the priority. You are not going to pay because you want more priority. So these are part of a behavior as well, way of doing that transaction. And this is analyzed, and it should be, by more advanced engine, later in the chain, AI usually, but it should be done. And that's what we do. And of course, you have to maintain a fraudulent transaction file. I quote file, because maybe it's not just a file, it's a database or whatever it is, it's a repository, but you have to maintain. When you discover a fraud, you have to assess the behavior or the pattern that was used for that, and you have to reuse that and feed your AI engine, right? So, jackpotting. Yeah, that term is used to describe method used by criminals to steal money from ATMs. So what we do, I can talk about our own ATM in our branches. I cannot talk about ATM that are installed publicly, but we do in our branches, we train the employee. For example, you may have hackers that are really smart enough and they will try to steal information to the employee. They are good at that, really. And if you don't train your employee, they may fall in that trap. And maybe sometimes they will provide information that will be used. Access, for example. Accessing the ATM or anything. It can be anything. So you have to consider that your employee doesn't know and you have to train it. You have to perform regular security assessment on ATM branches. So, of course, if a hacker knows that an ATM has been breached, a specific one that you used because of a firmware bug, that will be used in order to inject some malware and retrieve the money. So you have to close that breach. And we do so. Firmware, OS, application, security patch, whatever is in that ATM should be up to date, always. From jacking and web injection. So, yeah, in most typical from jacking scenario, an attacker will inject a script onto in the targeted page. This page will be, of course, accessed by the customer. Customer is going to fill out information. They will click on submit. And at that moment, when you click on submit, if you're infected, the hacker can do whatever he wants. Usually, he should hide a bit. So you're going to submit the form in the backend, the official one, but you may also send the same data to your server. And you will be able, for example, to log on. But actually, because you are infected, your credential, your ID, your password, whatever information, all information that is in the form is copied to the hacker machine. That's the usual pattern for web injection. What we do for that? Endpoint detection. Endpoint detection, and I'm talking about client-side detection, is just a small subset of techniques that are only part of the complete fraud detection system. A few years ago, it was in 2012, we started to see our first attack with web injection. I was there still in the maintenance team of current product, and suddenly we start to have complaint. Like, hey, what happened? I don't know, they've been stolen, something happened, and how it's possible, whatever. And we discovered in the source, in the HTML source, that there were JavaScript that was not from us. Where does JavaScript come from, right? It started like that. And basically it started just a bit after the leak of the source code of Zeus, Citadel, all those Trojan. They were leaked, and this opened a new world for hacker that basically use that code in order to start developing and start to make variants and so on. And I was involved at that moment. Then they said, okay, that's completely new. It's new. It's new for us. What do you do? There's no tutorial. There's no, what can you do directly now, right now? And we are a bank. Our release process is not simple, I would say. It's not that fast. You release a new version of your banking application, you have to follow some procedure, of course. But what do you do when it's critical to release anything? And then they ask, Giuseppe, and the other, we were two at that moment, during that night. And they say, what can you do? I said, look, what happens? Okay, I have source code, I have JavaScript, which is strange in my page. Damn, write a JavaScript then, and try to find things. That's what I can do right now, right? There's more sophisticated stuff, especially now. I'm talking about years ago, at that moment. And I say, okay, let's try to do it. And basically, here, a small view on how it happens. Remember when at the beginning I said that the director of Europol says, okay, things from years ago are still valid today and will be still valid tomorrow, because this type of attack still happens. Now we have more clever way to handle it. This was the naive approach. But we were able to deploy that in a matter of hours. And the next day, we saw a successful transaction blocking, thanks to that simple script that tried to see in the page, well, what, you are searching things, right? And that was years ago, again. So usually, you send a request to your application server, request is good, they will send you an HTML back. And that's the problem. That's what happened years ago, and what happens also right now in this kind of fraud. You have the bad guy in the middle. And I put the old names, Zeus, Torpig, SpyEye, Citadel, Variant. They were all there, well, all used. And what happens is that when you're infected, because that's primary key, you should be infected. Huh? It's not just magic like that. They can, usually, those versions of the software were hijacking the native libraries of the OS. Dynamic link libraries, SO. They were hijacking that, and basically, hooking, it's the same. So basically, at low level network, when a request is sent from your browser and that should go out, that DLL will handle it in memory, right? And basically, they hook that and they intercept that. At that moment, they can apply request rule, tracing, logging. Basically, you do whatever you want with that request before you go out. You get your response back, and the same, you can apply rules. This time, response rules. And usually what they did is transforming the content. Transforming the content may not be the interface is looking different. But what happens on behalf? Submit. You submit a form, you have an action, or you have data. You can just change the action, for example. That's what they did as well. So, what was done at that moment? As I just said, it should be fixed right now. What can you propose? So, okay, let's do some quick JavaScript and let's try to find what's happening. So usually, you embed your detection code in your content. You ready? You will execute it. What does it mean to be ready? Well, it depends on your infrastructure, it depends on your domain, it depends on a lot of different scenarios that only you know. Of course, you have a browser-side, client-side event, especially with the DOM, that you have to intercept. People use document.ready, things like that in jQuery. But ready doesn't mean only that it's ready to be executed at client side. Ready it means that now I have all the information I know in order to start the detection. You execute your detection, and then you send feedback for further assessment. That's important because then here you can say, okay, I found something. Let's send an alert directly. You found something, you send an alert. Yeah, maybe the first version. But no, because as I said, you are infected and you can apply a request rule for these tools. What will be one of the rules that I saw a bit later as well? One of the rules can be, okay, now as a hacker, I know your code, I investigated it, and I figure out that this is the call that makes the alert. So what you will do? Just apply one request rule, doesn't send, and it's a config file. You don't send a request that goes to this endpoint. And you will never receive anything. For you, it's always fine. So no, you have always to send something. Send the feedback for your discovery, and this feedback should be analyzed by other tools in real time, but other. This detection is just a small part, but it's required. It should not be taken as, yeah, it doesn't work, or if I'm infected anyway. No, no, no. This is just a subset of technique that should be used for the whole picture. Again, remember, holistic approach. Yeah, this will add on scoring your transaction. And again, in the report this year from Europol, cooperation is again a key. Cooperation between public and private sector, as well as within the sector, for them, it's crucial. They recommend to train their employee. It sounds logic, it sounds normal, but it's true, and you have to do that. Now let's enter a bit to the cross-cutting crime factor, which among phishing, of course, phishing this year remains an important tool in the arsenal of criminals. Social engineering. Social engineering. What can I say about social engineering? Right? For that, I have just a small video, 2 minutes, to show you, and we come back just after. Money mules. Who knows what is a money mule? You already heard? Money mule? Come on. Yeah, money mule. And you do that on behalf of somebody. So basically, because it is linked, phishing, basically it's a technique used in social engineering money mules, you do social engineering in order to achieve this kind of stuff. You can do, of course. And indeed, money mules is basically, you can use social engineering to make a payment, to let a legitimate customer make a payment. So technically everything seems fine because he does it, but he does it for a wrong person. Well, it was just abused. That's quite hard to spot. So what we do for phishing, we send regular communication to our customer. We make crystal clear, that we are never going to ask them this type, or this information. Never. By mail, by phone, by any means, we are going never to ask a customer what is your one-time password, for example. If you use a card reader to make a logon to your, we are never going to ask that. So, and that's the message that we send to our customer in a regular basis. Like, we update our security strategy, they should be aware of what is possible in the bank and what will never happen. And that's it. If I call you and I said, look, I'm never going to call you and to ask this information. And if you receive a mail asking that, you're sure it's a fake. And it's important. Again, it's part of education. We train employees to identify fraudulent communication. Indeed. And get a real-time insight. Real-time insight regarding phishing, there's a lot of different services that monitor phishing, that monitor way of doing social engineering. So you can ask them, you can cooperate with them in order to gather all this data in real time as well. When something new is discovered, you are already aware and you will be prepared to send a new communication. Again, collaboration, as mentioned in the report, usually it's yet another key here. And then we come with this video that I wanted to show you regarding social engineering. So, hello? Yeah, I know, I see, you need help. I will help you, I will show you how to fix your life.
Dag Fien. Dus gewoon. Ik zie een school tegen Antwerpen.
Ja.
Insecten.
Dat blieft?
Ik voel 2 insecten op je rug. Kan dat?
Ja, vlinders.
Slovenie?
Sorry.
Een moto. Oranje.
Pats erop.
Zenit.
Oui, bien.
Je hebt een vriendin. Julie de... Met wie?
Ja.
Een boeiend liefdesleven. 3, 4 zelfs.
Die vierde, daar zwijg ik meestal over, dus dat weten niet veel mensen.
Hoe is met je spierscheur? Maison rouge, balkon, blanc. Ja. Ik zie geld, ik zie transacties. Maar kent je rekeningnummer van buiten? Ik denk dat ik het wel weet. Die staat wel negatief op je bankrekening.
Ja?
9-7. Last month, you spent €200 on alcohol. Vorige maand €300 aan kleding gespendeerd. 8.
Ja.
5. Voor een huis dat van eigenaar gaat veranderen. €795.000.
Ja, eigenlijk.
41.
Ja.
Is dat juist?
Ja, dat is juist.
god. Oh man. Ah, dat is, ik weet niet hoe eng.
So the social media there. Febelfin is the official, sorry. This video, published by Febelfin, so it's a governmental financial institution, was published in 2012. You're right, 2012, more than 7 years ago. Do you think something has changed with the social media today? It's worse, maybe, huh? Maybe worse. There we didn't have Instagram yet or whatever. Now we even have those channels. Now we have influencers. It's even, you know, it's even nice, at least, to share everything online. So that's simple as that. You know, people, one that I really liked there is the one that, with the girl, when he said, yeah, you have, this month you spent more than 300 euros in clothes, right? Yeah? But how do you know that? How do you know that? Look, you just go to Facebook, profile you. If each time you are going to buy shoes or anything you buy, you are going to publish that, just going to check what you, and usually you are going to tell also what is the brand, maybe where you buy it. You know, so you just have to resume a bit this data, and then it's easy. I know how much you spend this month, or your life is in the social media. So that's interesting. It was like this a few years ago for me, I think, and we can all agree that maybe now it's not better. So sharing your life in your complete life, I mean, and details in the social media is something that can be used against you. That's it. And it's important because I was talking about the weakest point and weakest link in the whole chain. But look at technically. Technically, we are going to make it. It's always, when it's a technical issue somewhere, it will be fixed. And we may try to prevent, and then they will again come with new stuff, and then, you know, it's an unending story. But it's feasible. We can prevent things, we can help, we can avoid, we can mitigate, we can minimize a lot, so technically it's always possible to do something. But if you are the weakest link there, what can we do? If you share all your details online like that. So again, education. No magic, raise awareness. A bank by itself, or any cyber fraud and security squad, team, or organization cannot do the magic if basically you are sharing all your life in all social media. So raising awareness, it's one of the only things that really we can do like regular base with people. And that's why we send mails to our customer saying, again, like I said, we are never going to ask you this kind of detail. And that brings also awareness to them. And yeah, you need to do that, and we do. Money mules. So use of money mules to launder criminal funds was the second most prominent prosecuting threat highlighted by the European law enforcement. So ignorance is not an excuse. Criminal will always try to dupe the victim into laundering money on their behalf by making the job offer seem as legitimate as possible. That's about the money mules. So what we do for that, again, again, train your employee. Train them. Make tests on them, make simulation. It works. Because if you train it and it falls into the trap, when a real scenario will occur, he will be prepared. And maybe he will not enter into that trap. Think about, for example, this kind of fraud, which is called CEO, business compromised. So basically, you have, again, social engineering is also used for this kind of stuff. I'm going to call you as an employee, and I'm going to pass myself as the CEO. But for that, I have to gather knowledge about you, about the CEO, and they are good at that, right? With all information that is online or whatever, you can use that, and they are very clever, huh? Really, some people there, they can call you, and they are going to really make you trust that you have to buy something, and they are really convincing people on behalf. It's professional stuff for them, really. So you have to train people, train your employee. They have. So, ensure that internal procedures are always used, no exception. I can be the CEO, I can be even God. I will never, as a CEO, I know that I will never call one of my employees in a branch and ask him to make a payment via an email that I've sent or even a phone. Like, I call him, first part of the trap, social engineering, making you trust me already, and then send the mail with some information, and then the people will do this payment. How many people told that, I thought it was for the job, I thought it was legitimate. There's no excuse anymore. We have to train them. We train them. A CEO will never call you to make a payment on behalf. That's for sure. And regular assessment on internal payments method. So again, making a transaction that was triggered by phone call or a mail is something that you have always to assess. Is it still possible to do that today? Yes. Okay. 1 month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, regular assessment. Is it still the case? Is it still the case? Is it still the case? You have to do that. Because someday it will not be possible anymore. And you just have to be aware. And that, you close already the door. If somebody calls you, whatever excuse it is on behalf, and in the end, the goal is to make a payment, and usually, they like that, it's urgent. It's urgent. Something is wrong, and that's why I'm using this channel, which is not in the protocol, in order to make that payment, otherwise we will have issues. No, there's nothing in when you hear that something is urgent and you have to do a payment in an urgent way, it smells something already bad. And at ING also, we have an omni-channel view of fraud detection. So, if you have been hacked in your desktop, for example, we have web, desktop, mobile, or telephone, whatever. If you are hacked on one channel, in order to protect you, we need to ensure that it will have an impact on all channels. I mean, you have to get this overview, because, for example, you can be hacked on your mobile because they stole your information, but maybe they can use also. You spot it, sure, you spot it, you block that transaction, but maybe they will have time to use the web interface in order to make something there as well. So you have to have an omnichannel view, and that's what we have. Whatever mobile, web, or whatever channel is used to make a transaction, all the flows should be assessed by the real-time engine system that you are using to make fraud detection. So what's next? I will highlight again a sentence from Catherine de Boll. So cybercrime continues to mature and become more audacious, shifting its focus to larger and more profitable targets. To tackle it, law enforcement must be equally audacious in order to meet the challenge head-on. And to do so, however, law enforcement needs the knowledge, tools, and legislation required to do so quickly and efficiently. That was, I quoted Catherine de Boll, Executive Director for Europol, which is, let's say, not a conclusion of its report, but as I started with a quote from her, I wanted to end also with another quote. So what's next? It's coming to an end, the talk, and I wanted to share something that comes from our jobs and career interface, and I really like this one. We live in a world where we are connected 24/7 and where technology is constantly improving. At the same time, long gone are the kids who caused virtual mischief from their parents' basement. Cybercrime is serious business now, and so is ING's priority to run a safe, secure, and compliant bank. As an IT-heavy company, we want to make sure data is exchanged safely for our customers, employees, and suppliers. And at the same time, we need to find the right balance between cybersecurity, innovation, and dealing with data privacy in an ethical way. And this is important. If you are that kid in the basement, but with good intentions, then I think you already read it. If you're that kid in the basement, but with good intention, then you will find a bunch of interesting career horizon in the virtual world. Thank you.